Half of you guys are trading ICT's Power of 3 the wrong way, and that's why you guys aren't profitable. In today's video, we're going to be going over how to trade ICT's Power of 3 the correct way and how to use inverse fair value gaps, CISDs, to your advantage to become profitable and have a 75% win rate just like me. So first off, guys, let's dive into what a CISD is and what a inverse fair value gap is, because these again are two different things, a little bit similar, not really. So the change in state delivery is going to be when you have two candles moving one direction, giving a bias of either the upside or the downside, in this case upside, then rejected by three candles moving the opposite way, closing below the low, giving a reversal sign, obviously because we're making new lows to the other side. Inverse fair value gaps are going to be when we're coming up with either a three-way to the downside or the three-way to the upside. Sorry guys, it's like auto-attaching my candles. Right here, we have obviously our fair value gap here, or right here and here. This is going to be our fair value gap. Inverse fair value gap, if you guys can guess, is going to be obviously when we come down here, we're getting candle, candle, candle consolidation. Then we go down and we have a candle that closes inside, reversing or rejecting this fair value gap. So with that, let's go ahead and show you guys some real life examples on MNQ in the markets where you guys can use inverse fair value gaps, changing state deliveries for better entries and have a more likely chance of that power of 3 playing out. So let's go over our A+ setups and how we can form those and how we can identify basically 100%. So let's go ahead and hop into the markets and I'll show you some examples. Let's go ahead here. Obviously, this power of 3, it forms in two different times. So this forms at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So right here, this is going to be our 2 p.m. Obviously, there's three different steps of our power of 3, if you guys don't know. Our three steps, it's going to be, one is going to be our accumulation, or some may call it just a consolidation. Our second rule is going to be our manipulation. We are then stopping out all retail traders. I'll tell you guys what that is here in just 1 second. And then obviously our last but not least step is going to be our distribution or our reversal. Obviously that's where you guys are going to make most of your money from. So those are going to be the three steps. This forms at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So right here we see our first step, obviously our consolidation or accumulation. These are basically orders being built up, liquidity being built up. Order comes in, order comes in, order comes in. It's just building up, just ready to either shoot to the upside or the downside. Then, when we see a manipulation, we like to see a manipulation into a fair value gap or a change in state of delivery. But usually when we're manipulating, we like to see it test into either a 1 minute, 5 minute, or 15-minute fair value gap. So, in this chart, obviously we are on the 1 minute. Let's identify some fair value gaps, either the upside or the downside, that we can potentially test into. So let's start about the downside. Obviously right here, this is going to be our first known fair value gap. Let's go ahead and mark it right here. That's going to be our fair value gap where price could tap into after the manipulation that we can then distribute. So let's go ahead and check our upside fair value gaps. And right here, we have our second fair value gap there. So then, obviously, let me go ahead and move these down real quick. Then, obviously, we have our fair value gap to the upside or the downside. So Let's wait for a manipulation, and then I'm going to show you guys how to get a better confirmation for that A+ setup. As you guys can see here, price tapped in to this fair value gap that we had here. And again, guys, a fair value gap is going to be, as you guys can see here, the wick only touched here, wick touched there. This is going to be our fair value gap. This is going to be dragged down just a tad, but that is our fair value gap. We immediately tested this, rejected. We rejected this. So now we're going to wait for a confirmation, either an inverse fair value gap or a CISD before we enter. So let's go ahead and wait for one of these to play out. Then we're going to obviously short the market after our manipulation. As you guys can see here, we had a slight mini fair value gap that we closed into, leaving us a position to go short. Obviously now, let's get our short position out. When we enter here after this close, we're going to place our stops at the top of this wick, and we are shooting, obviously, for the bottom of this. This is going to be our first TP. Obviously, if you want to hold, you guys can, but we like to just really play this kind of first consolidation. Usually, if there's daily lows, we can try and take out these lows. Some people do wait that to try and get a better RR. I usually like to go to a 2-to-1 to a 3-to-1, so let's go ahead and watch this trade play out. Obviously, right here, absolutely dumped back down into this fair value gap. Now, noting that we do have a big fair value gap here that obviously price rejected off of. I personally took my TPs here, and as well, news came out, so obviously this is when I would take it out here. Let's go ahead and watch this trade play out and see if you would hold this trying to take out these lows. So right here, we tested down basically almost to those lows if you did want to take out there. But now, obviously, we are in this fair value gap where price has rejected multiple times. So now we can obviously see a reversal, obviously back to the upside. So when you play power of 3, you need to understand that these moves are going to be quick scalps. Now, if there was no fair value gap here, if this was closed, so if this got rejected, if price would have just consolidated here, if this was not formed, if this fair value gap was not formed, then obviously we could completely dump to the downside knowing that nothing is going to stop us. We could have probably taken out these lows, but knowing that there's a fair value gap there, we would have had to assume that price can't go any lower. So if it keeps kind of respecting this, we get out of the trade. So let's go ahead here and hop into another example of why you guys are not treating power of 3 right, and why fair value gaps and change in state of deliveries are basically key plays to becoming a profitable trader while using power of 3. As you guys can see here, this is 10 a.m. forming obviously our consolidation that we have here. Consolidation, not making new higher highs or lower lows. Then we have our manipulation down to a gap that we formed here. We formed here. Once we manipulate, there it goes. Once we manipulate, it immediately rejected off of that. But we still wait for an entry, because we have to wait, obviously, for those two things, either an inverse fair value gap or change in state of delivery. We see a literal just inverse fair value gap, change in state of delivery. This got immediately closed. We enter here. Let's go ahead and get our long position. After we close, stops are obviously always going to be below this wick. Now, let's watch this trade play out. We're going to target our consolidation highs. Let's watch this play out. Obviously, if you guys would have taken profits at those consolidation highs, went even further, but right here we had this fair value gap here that we could have tested into. So that's where I would have took my TPs, but this strategy, guys, is super simple. Most people complicate this, so that's how you guys trade PO3 the right way, using inverse fair value gaps and using different indicators to your advantage. Now, I have a full ICT Power of 3 checklist. If you guys want this free checklist on how I trade every single day, basically giving you guys A+ setups, go ahead and comment PO3 on this video, and I'll go ahead and send you that checklist. So if you guys did enjoy that video, again, make sure you subscribe, like, and comment on the video, and I will see you guys in the next instructional video. I hope this helped you guys, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.